لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، this is a new lesson, chapter of the charities and money. And we talked about the first chapter here, which is one. We said, what are the money that are part of the charity, part of the treasury of of Muslims? The second thing are the official money. The third thing are unjust by the governors and to the people, the citizens. So the second thing that we're talking about was the official money that are part of the Islamic treasury. So we said first thing about the booties. Now the second thing is talking about the charities. Charities are the second thing. Are going to come after that. Are you with me, guys? Okay. قال رحمه الله تبارك وتعالى: الصدقات. وأما الصدقات فهي لمن سمى الله تعالى في كتابه. روي عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن رجلا سأل. It says that book, and it is narrated that the Prophet ﷺ, somebody came to him and he asked him to give him some of the charities. So he said, Allah Almighty didn't leave these charities to the messengers or prophets to distribute it, but He distributed it in His book, in His holy book, to 8 pieces. So if you were one of those categories, 8 categories, I'll give you some of it. This hadith actually is in Abu Dawood, and it's a weak hadith. It's not authentic. Narrators is a bit weak. But anyway, the meaning is true. السبيل فريضة من الله. إلى الكفاية فلا تحل الصدقة لغني ولا لقوي مكتسب. Mention all those are allowed to take from the charities. And others cannot continue or complete their month. So all these guys are allowed to take from the charities, the regular charities, and here all these 2 categories, both of them So zakat and sadaqah is not allowed to be given to somebody who's rich, nor somebody who is strong to work. And his work doesn't complete his month, or it doesn't, he can't manage. والعاملون عليها هم الذين يجبون ويحفظونها ويكتبونها ونحو ذلك. Ones that are responsible to collect and to get the money, the charities, they deserve to take their salaries from the charities itself. والمؤلفة قلوبهم سنذكرهم إن شاء الله في مال الفيء. مؤلفة قلوبهم, ones that you want to soften their hearts. What do you mean by soften their hearts? We mean the ones that we want to soften their hearts means that they are either Muslims but weak Muslims in their faith, or they're not even Muslims and we want them to become Muslims by giving them from the charities. وفي الرقاب يدخل في إعانة المكاتبين وافتداء الأسرى وعتق الرقاب. هذا أقوى الأقوال فيها. The ones that are slaves and you want to release them, or they are not slaves but they are captives, Muslim captives, and you want to pay money for getting them out of prison or something like that. So all those are to give them from the money. والغارمون هم الذين عليهم فيعطون وفاء ديونهم ولو كان كثيرا إلا أن يكونوا غرموه في معصية الله تعالى فلا يعطون حتى يتوبوا. الغارمون are some people money, big ransom of money, in the sake to for example to solve a big problem between Muslims. From the money, unless they paid those payments in something that is not legal. So if they repent, they're allowed to take from the money. Supposed. وفي سبيل الله هم الغزاة الذين لا يعطون من مال الله ما يكفيهم لغزوهم فيعطون ما يغزون به أو تمام ما يغزون به من خير وسلاح ونفقة وأجرة والحج. وفي سبيل الله with me until we finish our lecture. وفي سبيل الله, we stopped here, right? وفي سبيل الله, in the sake of Allah. Jihad, struggling in the sake of Allah. That means fighting in the sake of Allah. So the ones that go to fight in the sake of Allah are allowed to take from the money of charities. With their weapons and stuff like that, we're allowed to buy them from the money of charities. Shaykh says even pilgrimage is part of the sake of Allah, because the Prophet ﷺ once told somebody that وَالْحَجُّ مِنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. When we're talking about the sake of Allah, anything that has to do with else, but if we have anything that can make us understand that. Now here, in the sake of Allah, وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, al-jihad, struggling, the scholars can be more wider than that. Benefits, makes Muslims benefit from, it's in the sake of Allah. Several opinions nowadays that have about that. So, some be without feedbacks, without helping the Islamic work. This is a very accepted opinion. Now others say that in the sake of Allah is anything that makes Muslims benefit from it. So you can give the money in building masajid, in building bridges and stuff like that, and houses, or etc. But this opinion is a bit weak, because it makes the word so wide that why should you say in the sake of Allah? Say just pay payments in that case. Although he might be rich in his country, but he couldn't manage to get his money, so he needs money. So you're allowed to give him from the charities, or the regular charity, the zakats. Okay? Is this clear? Okay. We talked about the booties. We talked about the charities. And now we're going to talk about the booties that are not taken by war, that the enemies just left it and escaped. So it's not by war. There wasn't a battle and then the enemies escaped and left their booties. No. The booties here are booties of enemies who were afraid of Muslims without but maybe because they heard that Muslims fought against some of their friends or some other enemies, so they left everything and escaped. Allah. So when it comes back to Muslims, that means they are the ones who deserve it, because Allah gave it back to them, and they are the inheritors of the truth. They are the inheritors of the prophets and messengers. وأما الفيء فأصله ما ذكره الله تعالى في سورة الحشر التي أنزل بعد بدر في قوله تعالى وما أفاء الله على رسوله منهم فما أوجفتم عليه من خيل ولا ركاب ولكن الله يسلط رسله على من يشاء إن الله والله على كل شيء قدير. ما أفاء الله على رسوله من أهل القرى فلله وللرسول ولذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل كي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا إلى آخر الآيات, until he says والذين جاءوا من بعدهم يقولون ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. He says the origin of the faith is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Hashr. Surah Al-Hashr is a surah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of Bani Nadir. There's a tribe. Bani Nadir is a tribe that betrayed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam Medina. That was after Ghazwat Uhud. But the enemies get afraid and leave everything and go away. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that what is left is for Allah, then His Messenger, then the orphans, the needy, called the high class people, and others won't get anything from those money, which happens in a lot of places, in a lot of countries. Are for those poor guys that immigrated in the sake of, they were kicked out of their houses and lands of Allah, and they are asking bounty from Allah and bounty and pleas from Allah, and they support the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they support Allah and His Messenger. Those are the trustworthy people. Saddled in the house, which is the immigrators, that means the Ansar, they love the ones who immigrate to them, and they don't find in their hearts anything when they give their property for them, to host them and treat them. And the ones that are, apart from their bad desires, being miser and stuff like that, they are the ones who gain in the judgment day. And the ones that come after them, they say, "Oh my Lord, forgive us and forgive our brothers that were before us in faith, and don't put in our hearts any hate to them, because you are the more kinder, the more merciful." Without mentioning the Arabic text, so that we can gain time. Okay, brothers, because we're not going to manage to finish if we go like this. We're not going to manage to finish. Look where we are. We still didn't reach the half of the book. The idea is to understand what is in this text and get it. You can read the text in Arabic or even translate it in English. Okay, you can find that in Arabic or in English. But my commentary and my translation, which is actually a commentary more than translation, actually, the biggest difference between Ahl Sunnah and all other groups. Third category, as Sheikh says, is everybody who came after the Sahaba, and he asks Allah for them to forgive them and to put mercy upon them. It's like when he says, "Well, you did not go to them by army. You didn't take horses nor camels to fight against them there." That's why the scholars say, the jurisprudence scholars, fuqaha, say that al-fay' anything that you take from the kuffar without battles or fighting. That means you're fighting. But when you don't fight, it's only the army was afraid and they escaped, or the enemies. And it's called fate because it goes back. Fa'a yafi'u, something that goes back. Are the servants of Allah. So when it goes back from the hands of the kuffar to the Muslims, that means it goes to the proper place where it has to go to. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created money, He created it to help His servants to worship Him. Because Allah created His servants to worship Him, created human beings to worship Him. So the infidels, the non-believers, the disbelievers, they gave permission to themselves to not worship Allah. And their money, they made it to help them not worship Allah, not worship Him. Takes back something that is grabbed for Him. It is something that came back to who deserves it. If there are some inheritance and there's an heir waiting to take it, but somebody stole it from him or took it from him by force, and then the government grabbed it from that thief or that bad guy and it gave it to who deserves it, we say it went back to who deserves it. Is that clear? Is that clear? So this is the fate. This is actually the fate. And this is like the jizya that is on Jews and Christians, or and the money. Okay, the jizya is part of the fate because it goes from the non-believers to the Muslims. The battle between Muslims and non-believers, they agreed to pay some payments to Muslims so that they won't fight against them. It is all considered as fate. Even the gifts that are given to Muslims, especially to the leader of the Muslims, who is the president or the sultan or the caliph or the amir al-mu'minin or whatever you call him, is considered Islamic land, which is 10% of what they have. Any non-Muslim, when he enters the Islamic land and he wants to make some trade in Islamic land, he has to pay 10% of his property. From out of the Islamic states, they have to pay a tax which is nisf al-ushur, half of the tenth of their property. That's what Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu used to take from the non-Muslims. Nowadays, in our lands, Muslims are paying the taxes, and maybe non-Muslims don't pay any taxes, or pay taxes less than Muslims. So the Muslims became non-Muslims, and the non-Muslims became Muslims. So sorry to say that. I'm sorry, the weather here is so hot. We're summer here, and the weather is so hot. So did you get this idea? Especially, and subhanAllah, even here in some Muslim lands, they call any tax al-ushur. mentioned to you, because Muslims used to take from non-Muslims who come from the land of any land that is called Dar al-Harb or Dar al-Kufr. They take from people of al-Dhimma who are non-Muslims, but they are citizens of the Islamic State. So they take from them nisf al-ushr. From an Islamic inside the Islamic land. So when they go from a state to a state, for example, from Egypt to Syria, from Syria to the Arabian Peninsula, I don't know. So these are states in the United States, and you have some states in like Australia is divided to five states, I think, right? So every state is considered as a state. When somebody wants to make a trade from this place to this place, he pays those taxes for that. So they didn't fulfill those conditions. So the state is allowed to punish them by taking their property and stuff like that. Al-Kharaj is from the land that was conquered from the non-Muslims. Even if its owners become Muslim, it's not taken for the people, it's taken from the land. So the land becomes called al-ard al-kharajiyya, al-ard al-kharajiyya, and Umar radiallahu anhu made that. What did he make? Conquered Iraq and a lot of places. They asked Umar to divide that as booties. He said, if I divide that land between the army, then what are the other people going to take? The land is going to be in one hand or few hands of the families of these army, and that would lead to make the Islamic society or the Islamic environment divided to rich people, very rich people, and very poor people. So they asked him what to do. What should we do there? And Bilal was so strict in these things. He said, no, this is our rights. This is my rights. I demand for this right. Umar said, no. What am I going to do? I'm going to put any land that we conquered, you have to pay payments on it. You have to pay payments on the land, even if the land is all of its members become Muslim, because it's a tax on the land, not on people. And so the majority of Sahaba agreed except Bilal and his friends. So Umar said, Allahumma kfini Bilal wa ashabahu. Allahumma comes ard kharajiyya, not on people. And that there's books like Al-Kharaj, student of Abu Hanifa, there's a book Al-Kharaj, there's a book Al-Kharaj li Yahya ibn Adam. It's supposed to become, they say Unwa. Unwa means you conquered it by, that you forced its people to surrender and you took the land, or Sulhan. When they were squeezed, they asked Muslims to solve the problem by peace. And then they agree about anything. For example, they say, well, okay, we won't surrender, but unless you give us so and so, or we agree about so and so, or something, anything like that. You see? And then they go back to the history, and they know what happened in every land. That's why our scholars were genius. Actually, they were historians, they were jurisprudence, they were muhaddithin, they were actually encyclopedias that walk by two legs. Not like a lot of scholars nowadays that if they know this chapter, they won't know the other chapter. No, those scholars look like Ibn Kathir, for example. He's a faqih. He's a muhaddith. He's a historian that wrote the history from the beginning of Adam until his days. He's one. I mean, sometimes when you sit with a scholar nowadays, he doesn't even know what's happening in his country. But they know the details that happened in all the era that they're talking about. That's so strange, subhanAllah. Okay? So I'm trying to give you only main ideas, but if you want to go in details in these things, there are scholars that wrote books, especially in the financial part of the Islamic fiqh, like Al-Amwal لأبي عبيد القاسم بن سلام. Another edited one that is maybe in 2 volumes or something like that. There's Al-Amwal Ibn Zanjawayh. Volumes. There is Al-Amwal للداودي. There are other books that speak about or talk about money. Al-Amwal, Al-Kharaj. Books that are focused on the chapters that have to do with money. Zakah, Jizya, Kharaj, Rikaz, etc. Okay? There's lots of money from money that doesn't have a specific owner. Like what? Somebody died and he doesn't have any heir to inherit him. Money that was stolen or grabbed from its owners, or it was go back to the Islamic treasury. If we don't know their owners, it puts its hand on them and puts them in the Islamic treasury, so it's considered as fate. That means money that go back to the treasury so everybody can benefit from them. Okay? Now, although this is not taken from the enemies or the non-believers, it's taken Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam because the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when anybody dies, he has his heir to inherit him, because families were known and tribes were known, but nowadays we don't know. Now let me tell you something. That you don't know their cousins, just go up a little bit. For example, in the law of inheritance, if we don't know, if somebody dies and he doesn't have anybody to inherit him, so we go searching for his cousin, the cousin of the cousin, and etc., until we get somebody who is a female in his family and he is the most closest to him, so he inherit him. Each other. And even the names change. You can find this guy has a name, family name, and his cousin has another family name. Or even his brother has another family name. And then people don't know each other anymore. They don't visit each other. They don't care. They don't pay attention to those things. So where are we going to put this money? Are we going to... So we don't have any place to put it. But it goes back to the Islamic treasury. Somebody who died from a tribe, so they went to the biggest person in his family to give him the money, and the most closest to their grandfather. Others who said that when we don't find anybody from the closest to his family, and this is the opinion of lots of students of Imam Ahmad and followers of his madhab. It says the official opinion in the Hanbali school is that it goes to the Islamic treasury. It goes to the treasury of the state. If somebody died, they used to give the property to anybody of the deceived, or anybody who has relations with him, like we mentioned before. The charities. And he used to order them to struggle in the sake of Allah with their body and their money, their selves and their money, as Allah ordered them in His book. There was no book or no ministry that collects the money. The same thing in the days of Abu Bakr. Go and distribute it to the Muslims. But Umar radiallahu anhu was the first one to make the mystery of the Muhammad. Minister of Finance. He's the first one who made the diwan. He called it diwan. Diwan is a Persian word. It's not even an Arabic word. So he called it a diwan. Of these words are not Arabic. Even the money, a dirham, it's not Arabic. A dinar, dineros, drachmas, from the Romans and the Greeks. And the diwan is inherited from, and there's a lot of words that are part of Arabic now, originally are inherited from Persian. From the Maghrib until Persia. These places until Africa, Black Africa, Sudan, and these places. A lot. So we need a financial ministry to give money to the fighters, the people who are fighting, the people who are struggling, the citizens of the gather the money for the army. And then every state has its own diwan for the kharaj, for the fate, and for all the money that is gathered. So the state needed money, So they get it from all these places to pay the payments. The Prophet ﷺ used to speak with his... What about now? I can hear you. Yes, yes. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I was talking before. You asked me you.
What about now?
Now I can hear you from you.
The connection is very bad. I don't know why. Although I'm using two lines, two Wi-Fi's, but so sorry. I'm trying my best. Huh?
Can you see the messages that we sent? Or...
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. Yes, sir.
What was the last thing that you heard from me?
The D1, etc. The audio went bad for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Histories, but he used to call them D1. And then in every state they had their own D1. For example, Egypt has its own D1. Iraq has its own. Syria has its own D1. Africa, which is Tunisia nowadays, and Tripoli, it was called Africa, Afriqiya. And every place had its own D1. And the Prophet ﷺ used to. Yes. So the financial statements became in their era three categories. The president or the governor, the first governor, it's the caliph or the imam they call him. What is in the Quran and what is the Sunnah and what is the ijma' of the scholars. The governor, the Islamic State is not allowed to take them. Like what? Like all the taxes that they take from the cities, the villages and stuff like that. Or the payments that have their owners. But instead of giving it to who owns it or who deserves it, they just put it in the treasury. Like if somebody dies and he has his inheritors, but instead of giving the money to the inheritors, they put it in the treasury. Who commits a crime and he has to be punished for that. Instead of punishing him, they just take a ransom of money and put it in the treasury. That's haram. Because if he deserves to be punished, he has to be punished. And like all taxes, like the taxes that we have nowadays, tax on this, tax on this, tax on all that is not official. The third one is something that there are different opinions about it. Arham, mirath, ذوي الأرحام. If somebody dies and we don't have any of his father's family to take the money, the property, so the property goes to the mother's family. So some scholars say that's official, others say no, it's not official. They say if he doesn't have any inheritor from the official inheritors, the money goes to the treasury, doesn't go back to ذوي الأرحام. Or an act that is practiced by the governors and practiced by the people too, the citizens too. They grab money from people that they don't deserve. And the it's working. And is that everybody who has to pay his payments, and he doesn't do that. A trustee. So he doesn't give it back to who trusted him and gave him that trustee. Or somebody who is working on somebody's money and it doesn't give him his rights. Or somebody who makes a company with somebody and he doesn't give him his payments. Or somebody who is responsible for some money for somebody and then he just cheats them. Or somebody who is responsible for for orphans' money and then he just corrupts them. Or somebody who is responsible for a waqf. What did we say about the waqf? What is it in English? Waqf? Suwaid. Endowments, yeah, endowment. This is a lot, so sorry to say that. You find ministries of endowments in our countries and they don't even pay those payments to whom deserves it. Money, payments, debts, and he didn't fulfill his debts. If he refused to give the payments to pay the payments, punished for that until he pays his payments. يحل عرضه وعقوبته. لي الواجد means somebody who has money to pay it. So this makes beating him and saying bad things about him official. We can say he's a robber, he's a thief, he's a bad guy, and he is deserved to be beat. Beaten. We see beaten, right? He deserved to be beaten. Here, can you hear? Huh? Is agreeable that everybody that makes something forbidden, beaten means hit. Yeah. So everybody that doesn't fulfill his payments, he deserves to be punished. Is not fixed in the Sharia. The judge can punish him in the way that fits, or he finds that it can make him, for example, imprisoning him, or beating him, or anything like that. Like Malik and Ahmad and Shafi'i and Ahmad and others, there's no conflict between them about that. All of them say if somebody doesn't want to fulfill his payments, he deserves to be put in prison. If he doesn't pay his payments in prison, he deserves to be beaten. Bukhari narrated by Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he agreed he told them that you don't put any money, you don't hide any money from me. They agreed. So when he asked some of them about the money of one of their great leaders, Huyay ibn Akhtab, all that money. So he gave that guy to Zubayr ibn Awwam, and he beat him to agree. He agreed. And they found the money of Huyay ibn Akhtab. Or they corrupt them. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu given to the governors or to anybody who has his work and job, it's considered as corruption. It's corruption, and it's not official. Called Ibn al-Lutbiyya. So he went to get the zakats, and he said, this is for me as a gift, and this is for you. The Prophet ﷺ went so angry for that. He said to him, why don't you sit down in your father's house and then see if your gift is going to come to you? He said that anybody who takes anything from that, it'll come in the judgment day. If it's a cow, it's going to moo like a cow, or he's going to carry it on his neck, or it's a camel, he's going to carry it on his neck, or it's a ram, he's going to carry it on his neck. Did I tell them? Did I witness? Or did I give them? Or did I tell them what they have to be to know? Did I tell them what they have to know? So it's not nobody's allowed to treat them a special treat. They have to be like everybody in selling, in buying, in making, in all their work that they do, and even in the gifts. You never give them gifts to gain from them. Umar radiallahu anhu used to that he suspects that they took gifts or they did something like that. The leaders changed. They didn't become just people who followed. Now, sometimes there are some governors that are so and they don't fulfill what they have to pay, their payments and stuff like that. So they're governors to serve people, though they don't serve people. And even if you want to pay them to serve you, they don't take that. To take your rights, you are allowed sometimes to do that. And they take it as part of hellfire, and they are responsible for what they took. And this is like somebody who sold his hereafter with his life. People, or worst person, is the one who sells his hereafter with somebody else's life. Not if he sells his life with somebody else's property. By somebody else's life. That one, he doesn't benefit from this life nor from the hereafter. Governors, what are the force that we have, the power that we have. As long as we can do that and tell the governors, the leaders, that these guys or this person or these needy guys need him to help them, as long as you can intercede between you and others, very good in the eye of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning is right. Tell me the needs of people that cannot come to me. If you intercede to somebody, to your brother, so he gave you a gift and you took it from him, you have entered. of sorcery, of riwayat, narrations about that from Ibrahim al-Harbi, by Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Masruq. They said, don't take any gift from somebody who gives it to you when you intercede in the sake of Allah to somebody. Talk about, we're going to finish right now. So if the leader, the president, for example, wants to take from the governors anything that is special for his property, for his benefits, we're not allowed anybody of them. It's like a thief that steals from another thief. Leaders, you're not allowed to help anybody of them because both of them are wrongdoers. And you're not allowed to help anybody who is not just in doing bad things. Because helping people is two categories. You either help in good things, al-birr wa-taqwa, in fulfilling the law, taking the property from who you have to take it from, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to take it from him. He's a wrongdoer because it's subhanAllah. Shaykh says here, look, many people do not do what they have to do, and they claim that they're not doing that because they are fearing Allah, but actually they're not fearing Allah. They are unbrave. They're not brave. They're people who are scareful people. Scareful people. But that they're not doing it in the sake of Allah. Actually, they are weak and scary, so they don't do that. On the other side, others who help each other in taking property they don't deserve to take, like killing somebody who you're not allowed to kill, like taking somebody's property that you're not allowed to take, like beating, putting the payments where they have to be put. That is something good. All these things are good, and the sultan or the authorities have to put the money where they have to be put, and you have to help them doing that if you have any ability to do that. Like Malik and Abu Hanifa and Ahmad and others. You can pay those payments without giving it to the governments and give it to who deserves it. That's a good thing. It's better than just leaving it until it gets lost. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah as long as you can fear Him, or as long as you have the force to do, or the power to do that. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ. Fear Allah in the Prophet ﷺ said, when I order you something, do from it what you can do. And this is the end. وَعَلَى أَنَّ الْوَاجِبَ تَحْصِيلُ الْمَصَالِحُ وَتَكْمِيلُ. This is very important. وَتَبْطِيلُ الْمَفَاسِدُ وَتَقْلِيلُهَا فَإِنْ تَعَارَضَتْ كَانَ تَحْصِيلُ أَعْظَمِ الْمَصْلَحَتَيْنِ بِتَفْوِيتِ أَدْنَاهُمَا وَدَفْعِ أَعْظَمِ الْمَفْسَدَتَيْنِ مَا احْتِمَالِ أَدْنَاهُمَا هُوَ الْمَشْرُوعُ. This last word is very important. Fulfill all the things that benefit us as long as we can do it. And we have to and make it minor. But if we can't do that as we have to do it, we have to search for the best thing that we can do, although it's not complete in our eyes. And if there is something very bad and something less than it, we can do the less so that we won't reach to the very bad thing. This is a rule in the Islamic law. As long as you can do something less evil and less worse, you do it. And as long as you can't do the perfect thing, you do the less thing that is at least what you can do. Wallahu a'lam walhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala rasulullah. Masalih, naam. And we will continue next. I'm so sorry that the connection was so bad. I don't. This is what I can do this day. This is the most the maslahah is to give the lecture, and the mafsada is to not give the lecture. So I prefer to give the lecture, although it keeps on cutting, than not giving the lecture. This is giving the best maslahah rather than giving the biggest mafsada. So making the lecture with some mafsada is better than not making it at all. Thank you very much for being patient with me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.